Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're a coin collector, or just someone who's curious about hidden treasures, you're in for a treat today. We're talking about one of the most fascinating and valuable coins in history, the 1992 Jefferson nickel. Yes, you heard that right. This 5-cent coin could be worth a jaw-dropping $67 million. But why is that? And what makes it so valuable? Stick around as we dive into the history, value, and mystery behind this rare nickel that could make you a fortune. Before we go into all the details, let me tell you that not all 1992 Jefferson nickels are worth this crazy amount. Most of them are just your average nickel, worth 5 cents, as you'd expect. But, there's something about a small number of these coins that could change your life forever. There's a specific error that makes these coins not only incredibly rare but worth millions. So, what exactly is it about these nickels that could make them so valuable? Well, buckle up, because this story is about to get really interesting. Let's start with a little history lesson. The Jefferson nickel has been in circulation since 1938, and over the decades, it's become one of the most recognizable coins in America. It's got the iconic portrait of President Thomas Jefferson on the front and his famous home, Monticello, on the back. Simple, classic, and timeless. Now, the 1992 Jefferson nickel was struck by the U.S. Mint in Denver, and like most coins, millions of them were minted. So why are some of these worth so much? Well, there's a rare error that only applies to a small number of them. Take a look at this image of the 1992 Jefferson nickel. At first glance, it looks like a regular nickel, doesn't it? The same familiar design, the same features we see in nickels minted every year. But some of these coins have something very special about them. A small number of 1992 nickels were struck with a misalignment in the minting process, and that resulted in a very rare type of error known as the double die error. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly is a double die error? Well, let me break it down for you. When a coin is struck in the minting process, the die used to stamp the design onto the coin must be perfectly aligned. But sometimes, for various reasons, the die gets struck twice, or out of alignment. This results in the details on the coin being doubled. So instead of a clean, sharp design, you see a ghost-like effect around the edges of the letters, numbers, and images. For the 1992 Jefferson nickel, this was a rare occurrence, and only a few coins actually got this error. Here's what you need to look for when checking for this error. On a normal 1992 nickel, everything looks perfectly fine, no doubling, no ghosting, just a nice clean coin. But on one with the double die error, the most noticeable feature is the doubling of the letters, especially around the word liberty, the date, 1992, and the phrase, "In God We Trust." Take a look at these images to get an idea of what that doubling looks like. It's subtle, but once you know what to look for, it becomes really easy to spot. So, how rare are these coins, really? Well, according to experts, the number of 1992 Jefferson nickels with this error is incredibly limited. While millions of regular 1992 nickels were minted, only a handful, literally a handful, of these coins have the double die error. And that's what makes them so valuable. The rarity of these coins, combined with the unique error, is what causes them to fetch astronomical prices in auctions and private sales. Now, let's talk about the money. Because, let's be honest, you're probably wondering, how much is this coin really worth? In the world of coin collecting, value is determined by a few key factors: rarity, condition, and demand. And for the 1992 Jefferson nickel with the double die error, demand is high, especially for those in near mint or mint condition. Coins like this have sold at auction for hundreds of thousands of dollars. But the most jaw-dropping part? Experts believe that a perfectly preserved 1992 Jefferson nickel with this error could be worth as much as $67 million. Yes, you heard that right. $67 million. That's not a typo. Imagine finding a coin worth that much sitting in your change jar or buried in a box somewhere. It's no wonder coin collectors are on the lookout for this particular error. The higher the quality and preservation of the coin, the higher the value. Coins that have been well preserved, with sharp details and minimal wear, are worth much more than those that have been circulated heavily. So, if you have one of these coins in mint condition, you could be sitting on an absolute goldmine. But before you start rummaging through your loose change, it's important to remember that not all 1992 Jefferson nickels are worth millions. In fact, the vast majority of them are just regular nickels, worth 5 cents. The ones with the error are incredibly rare, and you would need to have a trained eye or the help of an expert to identify them. So, if you think you have one of these rare coins, it's crucial to get it authenticated by a professional coin grader. Coin grading is a very specific process, and it's essential to know exactly what you're dealing with before selling or auctioning it off. Once you've identified your potential treasure, you should get it professionally graded to determine its authenticity and condition. The grading system ranges from poor to mint state, with several levels in between. Coins that are in mint state or uncirculated condition are the most valuable, especially when it comes to rare varieties like the 1992 double die nickel. A coin's grade can make a huge difference in its value, so make sure you know what you're working with. Now, you might be asking, where do I find one of these coins? The most obvious place is your pocket change. It's possible that a 1992 Jefferson nickel with the double die error slipped through the cracks and ended up in circulation. It's not common, but it's certainly possible. You might also find these coins at estate sales, in old coin collections, or in coin shops. If you're serious about collecting rare coins, you could also search for them in online auctions or specialized coin marketplaces, but remember, when it comes to coin collecting, patience is key. Rare coins like this don't just show up every day, and finding one is a true stroke of luck. But that doesn't mean it's impossible. There are collectors and treasure hunters all over the world who are on the lookout for these kinds of finds. So, keep an eye on your change and make sure you're checking your coins carefully before spending them. Who knows, the next big find could be sitting in your pocket right now. The 1992 Jefferson nickel with the double die error is an incredibly rare and valuable coin that could be worth up to $67 million. If you're lucky enough to find one, it could change your life. But, of course, finding one is no easy feat, and it takes a trained eye to spot these rare errors. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of rare coins, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more videos about hidden treasures and fascinating coin stories. Thanks for watching, and happy hunting. Next 2006 5-cent Jefferson Nickels USA coins today. If you're a coin enthusiast, collector, or just someone who loves finding hidden treasures in your change, you won't want to miss today's video. We're diving deep into a coin that could be worth a lot more than its face value. That's right, we're talking about the 2006 5-cent Jefferson nickel. Now, this might sound like just any old coin, but believe it or not, this little nickel has a fascinating history and can fetch big bucks on the market. Stick around to find out why it could be worth as much as $77 million. Let's get started. First, let's talk about the history of the Jefferson nickel. The Jefferson nickel was first introduced in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel. It was designed by artist Felix Schlag and has been in continuous circulation since then. The 2006 version, which we're focusing on today, features a portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States, on the obverse, and his home, Monticello, on the reverse. Jefferson's iconic house in Virginia is beautifully depicted in the design, showcasing the architectural style of the time. The nickel has remained relatively unchanged for decades, with only slight design tweaks over the years, but the 2006 version holds a special place in the world of coin collecting. In 2006, the U.S. Mint produced millions of nickels as part of the regular coinage series. Most of these were distributed across the country as part of normal circulation, just like any other year. However, while most of these coins are worth just 5 cents, a small number of 2006D nickels came with rare minting errors that could send their value skyrocketing. This is what has made these particular coins so intriguing to collectors. Some of these nickels have been sold at auction for prices most people could only dream of. In fact, certain 2006D nickels have been sold for amounts approaching $77 million. Now, you might be asking yourself, how can a coin that's worth 5 cents suddenly be worth millions? Well, the answer lies in the rare and unique minting errors that occurred during the production process. While these errors are quite rare, when they do occur, they make a coin far more valuable to collectors. Coin collectors are often on the lookout for these rare specimens, and when one of these error coins appears, the bidding wars can go through the roof. That's how a 5-cent coin can become worth millions. So what kind of errors are we talking about here? The most valuable 2006D Jefferson nickels are typically those that feature an extraordinarily rare error during the minting process. This could be anything from an off-center strike, which is when the design is misaligned on the coin, to a double die error, which causes part of the design to appear doubled on the coin's surface. In both of these cases, the imperfections were not intentional, and these types of mistakes are incredibly rare. This rarity is exactly what makes these coins so highly sought after. When a coin is struck off-center, it means that the metal blank wasn't properly aligned with the die when the coin was struck. This causes part of the design to be missing, making the coin look different from a typical one. While most off-center errors are minor and might only show a slight misalignment, the more extreme errors where large portions of the design are missing are the ones that can fetch huge sums at auction. These extreme off-center errors are like treasure to collectors, especially when they are from a year like 2006. Another type of error is the double die mistake, which happens when the die used to strike the coin becomes misaligned, causing the design to appear twice on the coin. This results in a double image, where you can clearly see two impressions of the same design overlapping each other. Double die errors can make a coin look quite unusual, and collectors are willing to pay top dollar for coins with this unique characteristic. The 2006D Jefferson nickel, with a double die error, is a highly coveted piece among numismatists, often fetching astronomical prices at auction. Additionally, some coins from this era have been found to have die cracks. A die crack happens when a small crack forms on the minting die during production, which then gets transferred to the coin. While a die crack might sound minor, some collectors are particularly fond of these errors, as they give the coin a unique, one-of-a-kind look. Depending on the size and location of the crack, a die crack could make a coin more valuable than one in pristine condition. These coins might not always reach the $77 million mark, but they can still fetch a pretty penny, depending on their condition and rarity. So, let's break down just why these coins are so valuable. The primary reason behind the high value of the 2006D Jefferson nickel is simply rarity. Errors like these don't happen every day, and even when they do, the coins don't always survive the years in a condition that's considered highly valuable by collectors. In fact, most of the coins that have these errors end up being discovered years later, once they've circulated for a while. Only a select few ever make it into the hands of dedicated collectors who are willing to pay top dollar for them. When one of these rare error coins hits the market, the competition to own it is fierce. It's not uncommon for auctions to see multiple bidders fighting over a single coin, driving the price up. If you've been checking your pocket change lately, you might be wondering, how can I find one of these rare error coins? Well, here's the thing, it all comes down to being diligent and keeping an eye on the coins in your collection. The good news is, you don't have to dig through massive piles of coins to find one of these rare error specimens. If you have any 2006D Jefferson nickels lying around, it's definitely worth checking them closely to see if you have one of these valuable pieces. When looking for these rare coins, there are a few key things you should keep an eye out for. Look for off-center strikes. These are usually easy to spot because part of the design will be missing or misaligned. Next, check for double die errors, where the design will appear as if it has been stamped twice, making parts of the image blurry or doubled. Finally, Inspect the coins for die cracks or any unusual features that might set them apart from the usual, everyday nickels. If you see something that doesn't look right, it's worth doing a little research or consulting an expert. If you happen to find a 2006 Jefferson nickel that you think might be a rare error coin, don't just toss it aside. Your first step should be to get it appraised by a professional. There are many experienced coin dealers and appraisers who can help you determine whether your coin is worth anything. They'll examine the coin closely and tell you whether it has any rare features that could significantly increase its value. If it turns out that your coin is a valuable one, they can also help you get it properly graded. After your coin is inspected, it will likely be sent off for grading by a professional service like PCGS or NGC. These grading services are experts at evaluating coins based on their condition, rarity, and authenticity. The higher the grade, the more valuable the coin. Coins that are in pristine condition, with no wear or damage, can sell for much more than a coin that has been heavily circulated. So, if you think you have a valuable 2006 Jefferson nickel, make sure it gets graded to get an accurate idea of its worth. In conclusion, it's clear that the 2006 Jefferson nickel is far more than just a 5-cent coin. With its rich history and the possibility of rare minting errors, this little nickel could very well be worth a small fortune. Whether you're a casual coin collector or a seasoned expert, always keep an eye on your pocket change. You never know when you could stumble upon a rare coin that's worth far more than its face value. So, if you've got any 2006 nickels, start checking them today. You might just find yourself holding a coin that could change your life. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more awesome coin tips and history. Have you ever found a rare coin? Let us know in the comments below. Next 2000 Jefferson Nickels USA coins. Today, we're diving into one of the most intriguing coins in American numismatics, the 2000 Jefferson nickel. What if I told you that this seemingly ordinary 5-cent coin could be worth big money, way more than just a nickel? Stick around because we're going to explore its history, rarity, and how some of these coins are selling for millions of dollars. Yes, you heard that right, millions. Now, if you've ever come across a 2000 Jefferson nickel, you probably just thought, hey, it's just a regular coin, right? But you'd be wrong. This coin, which was minted by the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia in the year 2000, has a fascinating backstory, and certain versions of it can actually fetch huge sums in the collector's market. We're talking about face value being worth up to $88 million, but before we get to the mind-blowing valuation, let's rewind a bit and talk about its history and how it became a coin of interest among collectors. The Jefferson nickel was first introduced back in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel, and since then, it has been a staple of American currency. The obverse, or front side, of the coin features none other than Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States. Jefferson, a founding father, is a central figure in American history, and the coin's design was meant to honor his legacy. On the reverse side, you'll find Monticello, Jefferson's home in Virginia, which became a symbol of American history and architecture. When this design was first created in 1938, the Jefferson nickel immediately made waves as an iconic representation of the U.S. government's connection to history. But the coin didn't stay the same over time. There were modifications and special editions introduced in the years following its release. However, it wasn't until the year 2000, nearly 70 years after the Jefferson nickel's introduction, that a new era for this coin began. By the time the year 2000 rolled around, the U.S. Mint decided to make a slight adjustment to the Jefferson nickel. For that year, a small number of nickels were minted with a special P mint mark, which indicated that they were produced at the Philadelphia Mint. And here's where things start to get really interesting, because some of these coins from that year have become valuable not because of their design, but due to unexpected minting errors that were made during production. Now, let's talk about what makes the 2000 Jefferson nickel stand out. The 2000 coin, while looking like any regular nickel you might find in your pocket, is a prime example of how something small, a tiny detail, can change everything in the world of numismatics. These coins were produced in high quantities, so finding one in circulation may seem like no big deal. But the thing is, certain 2000 P Jefferson nickels have been found to contain unique characteristics that separate them from the rest, making them incredibly valuable to collectors. So what kind of anomalies are we talking about here? Well, some of these nickels were produced with significant minting errors, which only adds to their value and rarity. For example, many of these coins show signs of what's called a double die, which means that the coin was struck more than once, causing certain design elements, like Jefferson's portrait or the Monticello building, to appear doubled. This mistake creates an eye-catching effect and increases the coin's desirability among collectors. Another type of error that has been seen on some 2000 P nickels is an off-center strike. Essentially, the coin wasn't perfectly aligned when it was pressed by the mint's machinery, causing the image to be misaligned, which makes it look uneven or off-center. These types of coins are rare and highly sought after because they showcase the imperfection of the minting process in a way that is quite unique. Then, there are coins that exhibit die cracks. A die crack occurs when the metal stamp used to imprint the design on the coin, develops a small crack. When this happens, the crack gets transferred onto the coins, creating an extra detail that collectors find fascinating. These cracks add a level of rarity, as no two die cracks are exactly alike. So, coins with die cracks can be considered especially valuable if they show an interesting pattern. Now that we know what makes the 2000 P Jefferson nickel unique, let's talk about the most exciting part, the money. The value of a typical 2000 P Jefferson nickel is obviously 5 cents, which is what you'd expect when you find it in your pocket. But there are rare versions of this coin that have been sold at auction for incredible sums, far beyond their face value. In fact, certain versions of the 2000 P Jefferson nickel, especially those with significant errors, have been reported to sell for tens of thousands of dollars. Some rare examples have gone for upwards of $50,000 or more at auction. And get this, there are even reports of these coins reaching valuations of up to $88 million. That's right, $88 million for a single coin, based on its rarity, historical significance, and unique minting errors. Now, of course, we're not saying that every 2000 P Jefferson nickel is worth that much. But for the right coin, with the right errors, the value can be truly astonishing. So how do you know if the 2000 P Jefferson nickel you have is one of those rare, valuable versions? Well, it's all about identifying the signs of error and making sure you understand the specifics that make the coin unique. Here are a few things to look out for if you're trying to determine whether your 2000 P Jefferson nickel could be worth more than face value. Examine the design closely. The first thing you should do is closely inspect the coin for any imperfections or strange features. Are there any doubled letters or numbers on the coin's surface? Does Jefferson's image seem to be more pronounced than usual, or do the details look unusually sharp? These could be signs of a double die error. Check for off-center strikes. If the design on the coin seems to be a little off, like the image is shifted or not centered perfectly, you might have an off-center strike coin, which is highly valuable to collectors. Look for cracks or crazing. Die cracks or die crazing can add significant value to a coin. These little imperfections may look subtle, but they can drastically increase a coin's worth, especially if they follow an interesting pattern. If you think you found a rare 2000 P Jefferson nickel, it's important to get it appraised by a professional coin dealer or numismatist. They can help you understand the true value of your coin and whether it's worth submitting for grading. Coins in better condition are typically worth more, and having a professional evaluate your find is the best way to ensure you don't miss out on a potential fortune. So, if you've got a 2000 P Jefferson nickel lying around, it might be time to take another look at it. You could be holding on to a small fortune. Whether it's worth millions or just a few dollars, every coin tells a story, and who knows? Your next treasure might be hiding in plain sight. Thanks for tuning in today, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that bell icon for more numismatic content. Who knows what hidden gems you might find next? Until next time, keep your eyes peeled for rare coins, because they just might change your life. 2000 P. Jefferson Nickel.